Hello there. My name is Jonathan, also known as Die Womp Red Die. You found Binging the Force with Rocky Mountain Fan Force. This is the place where Star Wars friends get together, rewatch Star Wars shows, and incessantly compare them to Game of Thrones. You can find us on Facebook at Rocky Mountain Fan Force and this show on a multitude of podcast platforms, such as YouTube at Binging the Force. You can also find our new merchandise store, bingingtheforce.myspreadshop.com. So go over there and buy something, will you? Help us out. Keep us on the air. I am proud to be joined today by our excellent binging crew. We have Michael,
Howdy.
Jefferson,
Hello.
James,
Howdy.
and Dale.
Misa back.
Dale, what the heck does your old subtitle there say?
Sex on, sex off.
I like and hate it at the same time. Well, today we are watching Rebels Season 4, Episode number 2, Heroes of Mandalore, Part the Second with more Darksaber. So before we get started with the episode, though, I yet again have a question for our panel. All right, so at the end of the last episode, the plot was telling us about, Sabine rescued her dad, and now we have some sort of Mandalorian armor-destroying weapon. And we find out that Sabine has indeed built this weapon back when she worked at she was a student at their Imperial Academy. And when she realized that the evil empire was going to use this weapon for evil, she thought she had destroyed
Evil
it.
empires do.
Right? What did she think was going to happen? Oh, they're going to use it to plant crops and help out people. So question for you all here. So was Imperial Academy Sabine naive, a collaborator, or just an objector who had no choice at the time? I mean, we may not know exactly for sure, so we're just kind of, being hypothetical here. But knowing what we've learned about Sabine so far, when she made this weapon, was she naive? Was she a collaborator at the time because she believed in the Empire? Or is she an objector, but she just felt like she had no choice at the time but to go along with it and keep building this weapon?
I think she's probably somebody that saw value in the Empire and, initially went along with it. And then when she sees what the Empire is all about, like many people do in the Star Wars universe, they decide to switch sides or they question what they're doing.
It's true. It's true.
I think there's some naivete there because she didn't just desert. She has insider information. So, when people left the Imperial Academy, like Biggs, he saw enough that he wanted to go and join the rebellion. But imagine if a character like Bodhi Rook, got this message from Galen Erso and then just sat on it and didn't tell anybody. So for Sabine to know that she helped design something that's that destructive, that powerful, she's got to fill in her associates in the rebellion. Like, hey, just so you know, we might be going up against this. And now that she's back in league with other Mandalorians, she's got to let them know the battle could be a lot more dangerous than they're anticipating.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for a lot of times that happens, right? So, hopefully you have people who realize what they've done can be used for evil, and they'll defect, and they'll either help out the rebellion directly or indirectly, become rebels themselves for the cause. But this always happens in the real world too, right? So hopefully there's positive negatives that can come out of something. But if you look at Oppenheimer designing the hydrogen bomb at the end of World War II, right? It's it was designed as a weapon to be used by the United States against the Axis powers, and they knew it was a terrible force, a terrible weapon being used, but hopefully, and then as time went on, they realized it can be, yes, but can also be used for good as well, maybe for nuclear power and other relatively positive uses as well. And so there's her naivete in that, and I think that to bring back to this, I think Sabine, she was definitely naive, but I think as she didn't realize how bad this weapon can be used, maybe she just thought, oh, I'm part of this Imperial machine. I'm going to create a weapon. But like when she realized like exactly how it can be used against people that she knew, I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back for her.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines similar to what you were saying with Oppenheimer, but I was thinking more along the lines similar with other scientists in the Manhattan Project, that if she was someone who had the talent for creating something like that, again, without having an episode or seeing real backstory or anything like that, just kind of trying to project of what she could have been like. I mean, thinking that maybe like some of the other even junior scientists involved in the Manhattan Project, that she's just someone who had a talent. We know she has a passion for weaponry. We know that that's kind of the thing that she's into. And so she probably had some sort of creative genius in doing that. And so, having that kind of talent, having those kind of, things in her mind, needed a way to exercise themselves, and the only real outlet to be able to do that is the Empire, in terms of who's in power and where you could go to be able to utilize those skills and utilize those passions of her. So she could have potentially like fallen into there just as the place where she could actually do the things that she's good at and she's skilled at and passionate about and talented of. But then in the course of doing that, that naivete leads into, okay, if now that I see what the end results of this could be, then that's when it turns to, okay, I don't want to be a collaborator, So that's what I'm projecting there in terms of what could have been happening with her. That she was that talented child genius, that is doing what they do in the only venue where they can do it until they realize what's going to be done with their creations.
Is it possible she knew it was going to be used for a different purpose or something? Like to stun people but not to kill them or something along those lines? And then obviously she finds out that maybe along the process, somebody other than herself in the weapons development program or something has twisted it. Because, like the Kyber crystals and stuff like that in Star Wars lore, they were, a lot of times it was, I think the Death Star and stuff, they talked about like using it as a power source to power the universe as a clean energy source. But of course it's twisted and made into, basically to power a super weapon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crux of it there, right? It's where you have, maybe it's just this inherent object that can be used for good or evil, but it's the people and what they decide to do with it that leads it to being used for good or evil, or maybe both at the same time, right? So you can split an atom, but now what do you do with that knowledge? What is the machinery, the organization around it, and that decides what to do with that kind of power? And if you're the Empire, you build a Death Star, and if you're the Jedi, you use it for lightsabers. So, and it's cool necklaces. So, it's interesting to see kind of how Sabine struggles with the knowledge of like, man, this is what I built, and now it's being used against my own people. I mean, she already had lots of baggage when it comes to Mandalorians, but like this just makes it all even worse.
Well, and it's that classic scientist thing where they get so focused on solving the problem that they don't even think about what it's going to mean once they solve the problem, or what the solution might be used for in the future. They're not even thinking about that. They're just thinking, how do we make this work? How do we do it? Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they don't always, it's tough for somebody to dive into like the morality at the same time that you're, like you said, to be an engineer or a scientist. So, hopefully you have other people who are already thinking those things, and at least in the case of Galen Erso, duping them into doing it or blackmailing them into doing it. So, yeah. Well, shall we start the episode and see what happens with our Mandalorian killing weapons?
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's not quite hyperspace. You're just subspace power or whatever.
Just chilling.
Right? 1/4 impulse going through it.
This is a little less relaxing.
Yeah, dusting in her hands.
Mm-hmm.
I love this animation here of just because this is before we saw what the snap would look like on a big screen. So
Yep. Pre Infinity War. Yeah.
This is pretty sad. This is pretty heavy right here.
Yeah,
Like,
she's
this
realizing
episode's
what
not for kids.
she's realizing what she's done or helped create.
Yeah, and that's heavy, man. That's heavy. That's terrible. That's a lot of guilt to carry around.
Yeah, I kind of like that they saved this exhibition for the exposition for the second part. You know, that first episode ended and we couldn't explain it, why she felt so affected by it.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. I mean, if she's acting like she's surprised that this can torch because basically it's associated with the armor, right? It's only going to be able to kill the Mandalorians. How would she not know that it was made or developed to do that, or that it had the capability to do that? It seems like a very specialized thing.
What did she think it was for?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
To serve Mandalorians, right?
because we see in a couple minutes
initially her grief as part of it is because she thinks every single person has died, including her mother and her brother. Turns out her mother and brother had survived. So
I think at the point where it was being developed, this weapon was being developed, maybe she was of the mindset of like Gar Saxon, that I'm going to ditch my own people to fall in line with the Empire and their wishes.
Yeah,
so at that moment, it was, hey, this is what I need to do to exceed with the Empire.
Yeah, but it seems like a very specific weapon, right? A very.
But it never gets tired. Like
purpose.
Jetpack battles, one-on-one jetpack battles between Mandos and Stormtroopers. We see it here. We see it later on in Mandalorian. It's always awesome.
now, her time with the Empire, her time with the Academy, was that after her break with her family or before her break with her family? I mean, it's kind of confusing there. I mean, could have possibly, as you were kind of intimating there, could have possibly been a rebellion against her family.
Yeah, maybe it was the reason for her break with her family, going to the Academy.
TIE fighters, things on screen. Let's talk about them.
These cool ships.
So the threat from the
Lovely.
Empire is back. No more time to just stand around.
Yes.
Right.
She did bring that up earlier, that they thought they were inbound, and then they didn't come right away. They gave us enough time to talk about dead people.
Yes.
So who's this that's come to rescue them? Remind me again.
Oh, Bo is back.
Bo Katan.
Yes, so that's her ship that we see a few different times. We see it later in the Mandalorian series.
It's a cool ship. I
It is
like
very cool.
I mean, it's probably like a standard Mandalorian ship, though, right?
Yeah, I think we see a bunch of them.
Yeah, we saw quite a few of them in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like Ezra going
Yes, Ezra asserts, but I'm not a Mandalorian.
Ezra is so awkward, but man, he tries. He's trying to be a Jedi. He's trying to be, helpful.
You can see, like, so here's difference, right? So, like in Mandalorian, you see Din Djarin take on Moff Gideon and his TIE fighter, and he does pretty well. But like Bo Katan, man, she doesn't mess around. She's good at this.
Right.
Yeah,
You have to imagine those. Oh, go ahead.
Ezra's no slouch either. He's doing pretty well.
Yeah, he did pretty good with that jetpack launcher there.
And you have to imagine those pilots. They didn't have training for, okay, what if you have one-on-one combat, your ship versus a person flying around?
Yeah, they didn't run that. They didn't run that in the simulator at the Academy.
We did just have an important appearance by a villain there. We should probably mention.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there he is, Thrawn.
Yep,
Blue
there's Grand Admiral Thrawn.
One of my favorite things about the way they decided to do Thrawn on the show is that his voice is quiet. We're so used to these loud, booming villain voices all the time.
Oh yeah,
I really like that he's quiet and he has this sort of this low tone to his voice.
yeah. He's very unemotional and kind of subdued, right?
But very much the opposite of like Darth Vader. with
Oh
his
yeah, for sure.
voice.
He's
Really happy
calculating.
that this actor is going to play him in the live action too.
Yeah. He's a good villain. He's calculating. He's menacing. And he's cool-headed, but like he's so smart. He's like incredibly smart and a really good bad guy.
I think that's what makes him so formidable, is the fact that he is that way. He's not emotional like Darth Vader and stuff like that. Yeah,
you're right. Opposite from the very first time we see Vader, he's freaking out. Tear the ship apart. He's visibly upset behind the mask.
Yes, he's choking people out because he's upset.
But yeah, it's cool. They got Grand Admiral Thrawn here. Really appreciate them bringing this character from the expanded universe into Rebels here, and plans for more. Right, like he's supposed to. Hopefully, cross their fingers, will show up again.
Yeah, he's going to be on Ahsoka, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
I think they've confirmed that. So.
Yeah, with the same actor who does the voice playing him in live action, whose brother played Galen Erso in Rogue One.
Yep, true.
You're saying Grand Admiral Thrawn and Galen Erso are related. Cool.
Well, yes, sure, let's go with that.
But Thrawn is one from that scene. Thrawn is one to see big picture. It's like, yes, you have this little toy. So, there's other people we see in the Empire like that, like a Tarkin, where it's like, yeah, you can do this, but we're thinking bigger than what you just saw here.
Right.
You've got this weapon. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, and Thrawn, like you were saying, he's so dispassionate. It's almost more like he's just trying to solve a puzzle. It's like he's too smart to be in the Empire.
Yeah, it's almost like he's 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody too.
Right, and he doesn't really necessarily care whether he wins or not. He just wants to solve the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And so this conversation that Bo Katan and Sabine are having is kind of related to our initial question, right? Why would you do this? She's like, I was arrogant because I thought that I could. Mm-hmm. And it's like when I realized what they were going to do with it, I was going to destroy it. And it's like, well, you can be arrogant, but it's also how short-sighted she was, how immature she was at the time, and still is a part of her character even now.
Yeah. She is young, though. We need to give her a little bit of leeway. That wisdom sometimes comes with age.
Although the Star Wars universe is one where they routinely have 14-year-old senators, so...
Yeah, that's true.
I hate the look of Bo-Katan's face here. What they tried to do to try to make her look older than in Clone Wars, what they did with the character design.
Well,
because one thing, the one wrinkle is fine, but they made her look puffy.
The other thing they're doing is that the design, the style of this show is a little different from the style of Clone Wars. This isn't done in exactly the same style, so I think they're trying to take.
But there's other better faces than what they did.
Yeah.
Bo-Katan's face, I can't stand what they did with her there.
Right. I think they probably felt like they had to do something and not just use the exact same thing. But I agree, it's not great.
Yeah. Michael, though, when we get old, our faces do get puffy and fat.
That is also true.
At least mine has.
I guarantee you, in 10 years, Katie Sackhoff's still going to look pretty darn good.
Yeah, she might have really good genes, right?
Yeah, it does seem like the shape of a lot of the heads is similar in Rebels here. Yeah.
I wonder if there was a conscious effort to make Bo-Katan look like Katie Sackhoff at this point, or not, because they wouldn't have had even an inkling that this was going to, that character was going to end up doing what they did with her.
Right, that she would ever perform it in live action. I don't think that was even a glimmer in anyone's eye at that point.
Yeah, my feeling was that it was just kind of a happy accident that we can just use her because she looks like the character anyway.
Yeah, they may have cast her for a certain look too. They may have, and then
I don't know. I feel the Clone Wars face looks more like Katie Sackhoff. You can, kind of see her in it.
Yeah. Well, you can only find almost any live actor to look like something else, I think, if you try hard enough.
Yeah. So Sabine mentions earlier her armor is 500 years old. So I guess we have to assume they don't have an armorer, Emily Swallow, to craft them some new Beskar armor.
Well, yeah, she's busy hanging out in a tunnel somewhere.
Right.
Leading her weird cult.
Well, I'm sure most of the families have been passing that armor down from generation to generation, and then obviously we know this is one of the more powerful older families. So
that's true. It's not like they're buying these kits, Beskar kits off Amazon or something like that. It is. You're right. It is kind of an heirloom situation. And it's this episode's the first time that they say Beskar on screen. So it'd been in books and comics previously, but never on screen.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting, because I think I asked about that when we were talking about Mandalorian, was whether or not it had ever been called that previously. So this was the first on-screen appearance of calling it Beskar. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a sort of a benefit of the fact that the people making Star Wars now are fans who grew up with it and who have read all of that stuff, and so they have sort of an interest in keeping everything as consistent as they can.
Yeah.
If it had just been some random Hollywood writer writing this, they wouldn't have bothered to put that detail in.
You can tell there's a Star Wars fan writing this that is steeped in all the information and the backstory and that type of stuff.
So in this show, Rebels, right? Like the overall plot, arc of the whole show, it's mostly about Kanan and Ezra, right? And kind of getting that, bringing of rebels and rebel cells together to eventually get to episode 4, right? And so do you feel like these types of things where, the Mandalorian episodes, Darksaber ones, are they more of the side plots to the show as a whole? Or is this like part of, maybe it's like the B plot, but it's still like a major part of the show? What do you guys, what's the impression that you get here?
No, I think it's absolutely
we've been hitting those specifically. I think we've been hitting those specifically, but it seems like the core of the show was really the rebel crew and the ghost crew, as them being a family, and kind of working with each other. I think the Mandalorian stuff that we've been focusing on just in the episodes we've been doing is kind of a side thing to it.
Right. But I think Ezra's definitely the viewpoint character.
Yeah.
He's the one in the first episode that he's the reason why we introduce the rest of the characters. So that
right. It's his journey. Yeah.
But I see it more as an ensemble where every character got their chance to be the star for at least a few episodes. And it's very clear that the writers found this Mandalorian storyline particularly interesting because they did spend a lot of time on it. Sabine gets a lot more backstory than like Hera does. Hera gets a couple of episodes, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I like that the big idea is about the rebellion against the Empire. It's kind of like when we were first introduced to Rogue One, and they said, "Hey, there is no Jedi coming with a lightsaber and to come save the day." So at this point in the Star Wars timeline, we only knew of Obi-Wan. So I think they added Kanan and Ezra, so there was that familiarity that it felt more Star Warsy. But honestly, I don't think that those two stories is essential to the success of the series.
Yeah, I don't either.
So it's kind of more like the A-Team. Everybody kind of gets their spotlight throughout
the spotlight episode.
I had to throw an A-Team reference in there.
There you go. Drink. So the weapon at close range, it seems like it's somewhere between a taser and force lightning as far as like how powerful it is.
Those the Stormtrooper Mandalore helmets, it seems like they went out of their way to make them especially creepy looking. They look like insects.
That makes sense. I mean, you don't want to humanize them as much as you want to dehumanize them, Yeah. Like the look, the aesthetic here is very original trilogy, for Star Wars with the lighting and the panels. It's all awesome.
Yeah. And I always appreciated how much they pulled from like the early design work that McQuarrie and the other artists did, which made sense because this takes place before the film. So those earlier designs would be in use. So it's a great way to both put in some nice Easter eggs that fans will appreciate, but also it actually makes sense in the story.
Well, Imperial facilities should look like Imperial facilities. That's, we know everything built by the same lowest bidders and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. And the bureaucracy slowly.
And we are now getting closer and closer to episode 4, where everything should look similar. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, if we're maybe 4 years before A New Hope at this point, or maybe as little as 2 years. It's close.
That, yeah, it's pretty close. Another great action sequence. I don't know about the design of those rocket launchers on the jetpacks, though. That seems awkward to have to bend over to launch your rocket.
Right? You can't see where it's going.
Right.
And you only get one shot. You don't get to reload it.
And yet the reload seems to magically reappear whenever they next need it.
Whenever the plot needs them to have a new rocket.
Exactly. And I'm okay with
But
it.
it's not like the magic weapon either. It's not a silver bullet. It didn't take out that ATDP that's fighting with them. Our heroes aren't just mopping up the bad guys here, right? They got a real fight on their hands.
They're having to work for it.
She's really convincing here, as if she's given in. And this Saxon, he's kind of the lesser Saxon.
Sure.
He's maybe evil, but he's probably not as witty as as smart as Gar Saxon was.
Well, and he's clearly not, because he buys this. He's so arrogant that he has an easy time believing that she would just give up.
Yeah.
And of course, we the viewers know better.
And all she had to do is press like 6 or 7 buttons there for it to be at full power.
Well,
and whatever, right?
Star Wars computers are very easy to use. Each one has like 9 buttons.
It wouldn't be cool to have a Windows thing show up and she'd have
That
to go and use her mouse.
Right. A blue screen pop up and they have to reboot it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the Empire knows better than that.
It really does look like the Emperor's Force Lightning.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Yes.
And the way it hits these guys too, a little bit Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
Once that's opened, and
Yeah, I wish they would have melted their faces. That would have been awesome.
That might be a bit strong for a Disney XD.
I guess.
This totally looks like Ark of the Covenant, yeah.
Again, I want a real adult Star Wars sometimes.
the helmet stays, James, so it would just be like dripping out of the
Yeah, that would be fine. You don't have to show them melting. Just the
No, that would
ooze
almost
coming out.
Doesn't turn them to dust even.
So here we're having the big philosophical discussion about the use of power and the use of the weaponry and when it should be right, and the whole hero's journey thing of like, her having to make a decision about, it always comes down to, does the hero kill the villain?
Well, and that's a point too, is that so she appears to have reset the weapon so that it doesn't turn them into dust. It just stuns them.
Yeah, tortures them.
Because she has to retain the moral high ground.
Yeah, Jedis don't do revenge, right? They return.
Yeah, but if you don't kill these guys, they're going to come back and kill you later too. So
she's got to be considering it, because when she fought Gar Saxon and left him alive, he immediately turned and someone else offed him. But
right, but that's always that's one of the core things of Star Wars. That's Luke's battle with Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. It ends with him saying, "No, I'm not doing this."
Yep. And creating that connection. Father, please help me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in his defense, it worked.
Yeah, and it looks like, it's always a good way to defeat your enemy, right? Is like you don't straight up cut their head off, but what you do is you destroy the base, and anybody's on the base, well, it's not my fault.
Yeah. I didn't murder each individual person. I just blew the base up.
Exactly.
I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Right.
yeah,
I believe
It's
that was
a
a
good way
Batman
to have
line.
it both ways, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was a Batman Begins line.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
yeah, they kind of play with that concept sometimes. Like in Bad Batch, the recent seasons, they're stunning everybody. They're not actually killing the other stormtroopers.
yeah.
Just not realistic, and I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I like
Now we're having the important discussion. We got to focus on this. We're having the important who's going to lead Mandalore conversation. All of this has been leading up to who's going to lead Mandalore and fight the Empire, and who possesses the Darksaber. And of course, we've made a big deal about it. It has to be won in a fight. It can't just be given to someone, right?
Right. She didn't take it earlier.
So are they
Sabine offered it to Bo Katan previously, and she turned it down. So this is all looking very, very familiar. Vizsla is with you, Rook is with you, Elder is with you, Kryze is with you. The Protectors are with you.
Sit on the Iron Throne.
Yep.
Yep.
Clan Wren is with you.
Well, and it's kind of, maybe funny is not the right word, but I mean, Bo Katan clearly is the only person who actually wants the job, and it just keeps slipping away from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is how she ends up with it the first time.
Yay!
She didn't have to win it in battle, but it was presented to her.
Right.
Different rule, I guess. Different rules.
Maybe off screen they played that hologram chess game for it or something.
Right. She defeated me. We didn't say in what, but she did defeat me.
So that was the first time she ended up with the Darksaber and led Mandalore. And we know only in dialogue what happened after that. We've never seen on screen what happened after that, but it's been discussed in The Mandalorian. It's referred to in dialogue.
Well, was this a fun episode? What do you guys think?
I think it was a great couple of episodes. A very great balance between action and story and character development. It's a great season opener for the series, I thought.
Well, it didn't have any politics, so no, it's good. It was they were good episodes.
Good chamber discussions, yeah.
they tied in together really well, I thought. It gave us a little more Mandalorian history, background story.
And the thing I like about this being Mandalorian history is these Mandalorians are thinking on their own. By the time we see them 20 years down the road in the television series, everything is, this is the way. And there's one person that says what to do, and everyone just blindly follows is kind of the impression we get. At this point, she's really deciding, okay, now the moment feels right. I can attribute this to my sister, and now I'm going to take up the Darksaber.
Yeah, it's almost like they've gone back to their more strict dogmatic ways or something, religious ways, I guess, in the newer, obviously 20 years later or something.
Yeah, it's like the culture goes in this cultural arc, right? So you see them as pacifists, totally unexpected from the fan perspective, and then you go to this and the Rebels, where it's more what you expect. You have houses, you have that fighting the Empire, trying to bring them all together. They do. And then the cultural arc continues in The Mandalorian, where it's like, okay, now we're in like this Western and everybody's divided. And like you said, James, it's like these dogmatic religious beliefs, this one group trying to bring them all back together again. It's this ebb and flow of what is Mandalorian culture. And it's entirely up to Star Wars, brain trust, when all we had was just the seed of Boba Fett at the very beginning, right? So from that, it's exploded onto the small screen. What does it mean to be Mandalorian and Mandalorian culture? And for better or for worse, right? So this is how they portrayed it in these different phases. This is arc of the culture. And so, we really like where it is now, I think, in Mandalorian, and I appreciate kind of maybe not exactly listening to fans, but just understanding for this culture, these different phases that it will go in. And so, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to dive back into The Mandalorian. Next time you see us, we'll be tackling the first episode of season 2, which is called Chapter 9, The Marshal. And we have kind of gotten all of this backstory, this history for the Darksaber, for Bo Katan, and some of these things that have happened around Mandalorians. And we will see where that takes us next. So any final words before we wrap up here tonight?
R.I.P. Ray Stevenson.
Absolutely.
Who is going to be in the live action Ahsoka? We've already seen in the trailers that he's playing one of the villains in the live action Ahsoka series.
I think it'll end up being one of the last things that he did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
we're glad we got him as long as we did, and that he contributed to the Star Wars pop culture phenomenon. So, well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here today, and thank you out there and our listening and watching audience. If you're interested in learning more about the Rocky Mountain Fan Force, check us out on the Facebook page, Rocky Mountain Fan Force. So, thank you all for tuning in. May the Force be with you.
See you guys.